I don't know if there's a great niche for AI powered farming.
Just let it go wild.
I don't even know what that
Square
would be.
square corn. I want square corn.
I don't think you do. There's a reason it grows in round shapes. I want normal corn. I want sustainable agriculture practices. But multiple varieties of apples is fine.
Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Cinema Crush. I'm your host, Emily Salisbury.
And I'm your co-host, Jacob Salisbury.
And we're married.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Last time I checked.
Yeah, I guess it has been a couple years.
Yeah. We're also creatives.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I'm off my game today. I am an animator. I'm official freelance animator.
Yeah.
If you need it moving, I can do it.
That's the slogan.
That's the slogan, and we're sticking with it, and we're not workshopping it.
And you do 3D printing and all kinds of stuff.
I do everything.
Yeah. And I do 2D stuff. I don't animate. I don't have the mental fortitude for that, but I do illustration and graphic design. And that's what we do. And we're here to talk to you about movies today.
Because we love movies.
Yeah, we do. It's like our whole thing is watching movies and talking about movies and sometimes TV.
And critiquing it and pulling it apart and seeing what it's made of.
Like, literally, we can't stop. Please help. I can't watch a movie anymore without criticizing it. I have to turn off the inner critic. I have to turn off my inner ego from Ratatouille, because that's how I feel every time I walk into a movie. I need to learn how to enjoy movies again. And guess what? I think this movie is going to be that for us today.
Oh boy. I just channeled a part of my brain that is all for Minions.
Oh.
There's the small tiny part of me that is just the ideal Illumination movie theater guest.
The small 45-year-old woman.
Yep.
Inside of you.
Yep.
That loves Minions.
There's
everything is Minions.
There's that part of me when I watch movies and I go, ooh, pretty.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part, which is just, I want to tear it all apart.
Yeah. But sometimes you get a really good movie. Or a really good TV show, and you're just like, num, 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 num. I want more of that.
Num, num? More please?
More please. More please, good sir.
Please, sir. That's
been me. I'm sorry, I talked over your impression, and I shouldn't have done that.
Please, sir. May I have some more?
If by more you mean more of the TV show The Bear.
I've only watched that show in, passing as you've been watching it.
Yeah.
So I'm, very familiar with very specific parts of very certain seasons.
Yes. This is just my PSA to everyone that you should go watch The Bear, especially if you enjoy food and you enjoy TV shows with good writing and really, real characters and good storytelling.
And intense montages.
And intense B-roll montages with great music. That's my recommendation for today. But other than watching The Bear, what's been going on in our lives? Please help me condense the last 2 months down into a summary.
What have we been up to? I've been doing a bunch of stuff, networking and animation. I've been going to a bunch of events, talking to people, freelancing around.
Yeah, I have been in Chaos World, which is why this episode is so delayed. Because my workplace flooded. So, historic building flooded. the floor specifically that I work on flooded and damaged the entire rest of the building because I work on the top floor. So we're currently out of that building, all working in various locations. So I've been working from home a lot and trying to like help triage, like moving stuff out of that building so it can be renovated and communicating to the public because that's my job. So I'm sort of mentally prepared for this, but also like, you don't know what you're missing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot. I don't think I fully processed it yet.
Well, we can process it here, live,
right
on
now.
the air.
I mean, it's not like a big, like, it's not like a tornado ripped through City Hall, right? Like, it's flooding. And it's flooding that happened when a lot of other people were having flooding. And it's crazy. Like, I was watching recorded security footage from the, like, front lobby of City Hall. And, like, you just, like, scrub through it, and you see the water starting to come down, and then it's, like, even more, and it's pooling on the front counter, and then there's people coming in and taking electronics off of desks and trying to move documents off of... Because, like, everybody left for the holiday weekend. Nobody was, like, thinking, oh, maybe I should move these documents off of my desk in case they get wet. Like, nobody was thinking about that.
Nope.
And there's no, like, planning you can do for something like that. Like, we have a really robust emergency operations plan at City Hall, like, in case of, like, another plane crash, or, because that's happened, or
the fact that we have to say another is
or
concerning.
I don't know. All kinds of various horrific things that could happen that the city would have to triage. A flood in our building, even though that's happened a couple of times in the past because it's a very old building, and so things like that can happen. We've also had a fire in the past. That was not on the bingo sheet for 2024. If I had to give a good reason for anything being delayed, that's the reason, you know?
But kind of a blessing in disguise, because now that you're working in the office that I'm working in... Here at home, we rearranged our whole office.
Yeah, we were like,
have a
hey,
new podcast set up.
Guess what? This office, the way it was not working. So we've rearranged it. I think it'll be much better for recording, and you know, as we record, we'll be able to upgrade our podcast setup even more, and it'll be great. So,
what are we watching?
Well, before we get to the movie. Before we get to talking about the lead up to the movie, I think we need to make a visit to the concession stand. Because I have a little treat. So let's go. But this is a Kit Kat. Kit Kat is known for having interesting flavors. Because, like, it's chocolate and a wafer. Like, you can do a lot with that. So, like, there's a lot of flavors in Japan and all over the world. Different Kit Kat flavors. We have our first churro-flavored Kit Kat, which sounds really good in theory. Because when you think of a churro, you think basically like a donut with cinnamon sugar and maybe something to dip it in. But obviously this isn't the case this time. I wanted to try this, so, you know, here's some good Foley. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just cinnamon sugar on a Kit Kat.
But, like, I'm impressed. It tastes, if I had to describe, very like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like a grain cereal type of a vibe, and like a white chocolate. So pretty much what I expected.
I think it works well because the Kit Kat is crunchy like a churro is.
Yeah. Well, and like how often do you eat a churro?
Every time I go to
Costco?
Yes. Thank you. I was like Big Mart. The big one.
The big one.
The big one.
The big store with hot dogs and pizza. And also churros for some reason. I don't know why they have those. They also remind me of the cinnamon pretzel bites that Domino's has.
Mm.
And, like, especially when you dip them in the icing, it's very much like that kind of thing. It's pretty good. But I don't think that these are out anymore because they're limited edition. So if you find one,
Congrats.
give it a try. It's really sweet. I think I would share this for sure. I don't think I would eat a whole one by myself. It's better than the Fruity Pebbles Kit Kat. That one was wild. That one tasted like I was eating a smell. That one was crazy. This one is actually like, this is candy. That one was perfume in the form of a Kit Kat. So I like it. I'm not going to give it a rating, but give it a try if you can find it. All right. Let's talk about Sesame Street.
Sesame Street?
Yeah. So our movie today, a movie called Follow That Bird, released in 1985. And it's about Big Bird. What's your take on Big Bird? Who's Big Bird to you?
Who's Big Bird to me?
Define Big Bird.
That's a big question. I guess Big Bird he's the friend on Sesame Street. I feel like Big Bird comes across as very kind and very, very innocent. I think he's kind of everyone's friend.
Yeah.
He's pretty chill.
Mm-hmm.
From what I can remember, I know he's friends with Snuffy.
Mm-hmm.
I know he has a lot of talents because he's ridden on a unicycle before.
Yeah.
So, very skilled. And clearly one of the biggest members of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
That's his name.
Yeah. If you had to rank Big Bird, only Big Bird, we don't have to get into a whole tier ranking of Sesame Street characters because there are too many. But if you had to put him on a tier list of characters based on like vibes, where would he fall?
I mean, S tier. He's like one of the poster kids of Sesame Street.
Yeah. He's actually like one of the original Sesame Street guys.
Yeah. I think, if I remember right, there's only been 2 people that have played him.
Yeah, that's right. So, Big Bird, well known for being played by Carol Spinney, who died in 2019. Rest in peace. One of the OG cast members of Sesame Street was on the show for a very long time. There's a documentary about his time as Big Bird from, I think, 2015. But he did an amazing job with this character. And had a lot of development with Big Bird, too. So Big Bird originally appeared on Sesame Street, like, really early on. Like, let me... So Sesame Street was first aired in 1969. Big Bird is on the scene right away. But Carol Spinney kind of playtested him as, like a goofy... Like, he's big, he's a goofy character, he's kind of a comic relief. And then he sort of realized that wasn't the way he wanted to go with Big Bird. And so we get the Big Bird that we know as this kind of childlike, innocent, everybody's friend. Like you said, he's very kind and he's a little naive. But he is also originally 4 years old. So he is a baby. he's a little
You mean
guy.
he's gonna get bigger?
Apparently. It's kind of that, it reminds me of that meme that went around at one point where people were like, I've never seen a baby pigeon. And so then they were like, so what if every pigeon that you see is a baby pigeon and there's a giant mother pigeon somewhere? And Big Bird kind of gives me that like vibe. I did a little research on Big Bird, and he has described himself, he's self-described as a few different things. So in 1976, he visited Hollywood Square. He defined himself as a lark. In 1981, he visited Mr. Rogers, and he said that he was a golden condor. But nowadays, the typical one that I hear is that he's a canary, which is even smaller.
Just a real big canary.
You think about golden condor, like condors are huge. They have huge wingspans. That would make sense. But a canary, he does like to sing. He looks nothing like a canary other than the fact that he's yellow. He has also said, so he's a canary and his scientific name is Bigus canarius, which is very, very good. So as you said, Big Bird is very big. He's over 8 feet tall, which is due in part to the puppeteering style of Big Bird. And one of the things that makes me believe Carol Spinney is superhuman and has not actually died, but he is a superhero somewhere, because he would carry 4.5 pounds of Big Bird's head on his one arm that he would stick up above his head for like 10 plus minutes of filming, which, as 2 former puppeteers, that is wild. That is crazy. And he's walking around.
That's a heavy puppet.
He's not just puppeting the mouth, he's doing the eyes and the eyelids. Like, there's a whole animatronic situation going on under there. A very simple one, but like, it's not just a mouth. It's very impressive. And he's also under like several layers of feathers.
Big old pants.
And big old pants. Because he's got those big old legs. Big Bird is covered in roughly 6,000 dyed turkey feathers at any given time. I actually saw a fun fact that at Carol Spinney's memorial, everyone walked away with a Big Bird feather.
Aww.
So that's really sweet. But being a character that has been on Sesame Street for so long, Big Bird has gone through a lot of iterations. Today's Big Bird is 6.5 years old. And as you mentioned, his best friend is Snuffy, who is introduced later in the show. Originally, he was introduced as Big Bird's imaginary friend.
Right, I remember that arc because everyone thought Big Bird was making him up.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
He's real, and he's even bigger than Big Bird.
He's a big elephant. He's a big elephant guy. He's got that. He has several international cousins. I don't know if you've seen them.
I've seen the Mexican Sesame Street.
Yeah, so he's got Abelardo, Daniel, Minicus, Pino, Pupas, and Garibaldo, who is terrifying.
Wait, I want to see Garibaldo.
Garibaldo is that blue one.
Oh, good lord.
He's so scary.
Where is he from?
I don't know. Spain, maybe?
Why is his eyes red?
I don't know. It's an odd choice. He's blue.
All the other ones are like real cute.
Yeah.
Like different kinds of birds.
Right.
Which is kind of fun that they are different in those like foreign variations of Sesame Street. I like that.
Yeah.
Because then it's not like, oh, Big Bird.
It's not
Big Bird. He's speaking Spanish. Like, no, Big Bird is on Sesame Street. He lives in New York.
Well, because that's the thing is you also have characters. What's the one character on Sesame Street who speaks Spanish?
Rosita.
That would be weird to have her on there speaking Spanish and then have Big Bird on the other show. Like, there would be a weird continuity thing there, I feel like. But I do really like the Big Bird verse of the different Sesame Street characters.
It's kind of like we have a multiverse going on. Yeah. But it's not.
He's also appeared with his cousins before.
Right. They're not the same character.
Yeah. So it's not like different Big Bird. It's like, it is Big Bird's cousin. That's how they reference them.
Because the way you have to manage the Muppets is that the Muppets are real.
Right.
They're all real actors. They're real people.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, that's another thing. Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch are both Carol Spinney also. So it's like, there's so many different characters that are played by like the same person, but they're so different and they're so good at like keeping them separate. One other fun fact, I guess not so fun. Big Bird was supposed to be on the Challenger rocket, which is the one that exploded.
Well, it's a good thing he wasn't.
Yeah, I found this anecdote from Carol Spinney that he wasn't able to go on the rocket because Big Bird was too big. And so he watched the liftoff from the Sesame Street set and then heard the explosion. And he said, when I saw that happen, I thought I was supposed to be on that ship. And the horror of knowing that these people died, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. We could have lost Big Bird. And we lost several amazing school teachers, but...
that would have, honestly, that would have been even more traumatizing.
Right?
Like, to add Big Bird on top of everyone else on that tragedy. Oh, my word.
That would be crazy.
Hypothetical, what would you do on Sesame Street?
I don't don't know.
Would Big Bird just be dead, or would you recast?
Because this is the thing. Sesame Street has had characters pass away. And so Sesame Street is one of those shows that deals with difficult topics like that. Like, they've had characters pass away, human characters pass away.
Yeah.
And they have to deal with that. And Big Bird was actually directly involved in one of those episodes. In 1982, Will Lee, who played Mr. Hooper, he passed away. And so on the show, they had to deal with that on the messaging of that instance. Like, they have to explain to their audience of like over 9 million children at this point what is happening, because they're not just going to recast Mr. Hooper. Kids will know. And so they felt like they owed it to him to sort of work through explaining grief and losing loved ones. That episode was like a landmark episode for the show, and Big Bird was a big part of that episode. I believe that was just a couple of years before the movie that we're watching today came out. Just to give you a couple of little details, this is the first feature film released for Sesame Street. I think the first Muppet movie had already released at this point. We've done other Muppet films before that, and this is the first Sesame Street. Obviously, Jim Henson is very involved in this. And also, this is the last film that Jim Henson and Richard Hunt both worked on together before they both passed away. So this is still a Henson film. I don't want to get too much into the details because it's not like a super long movie, and like obviously being Sesame Street, it's written for a younger audience, so it's a simpler plot. But I'm very excited to show it to you. We've gotten some background on Big Bird and reminded ourselves why we love him so much. So I think we should go watch the movie.
Well, I have one more interview question for you.
Oh.
Why are you bringing this movie? What does Big Bird mean to you?
I feel like I should save that for the other half of the episode.
All right, we'll talk about it then.
All right. We'll see you after the movie.
See you then.
It's intermission time.
Hey, it's Emily. I'm coming at you at the intermission while we go and watch this movie. I just have a couple of short announcements to go over before we get back into it. If you like what you hear and want to support our podcast, you can email us at cinemacrushpod@gmail.com. That's cinemacrushpod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at cinemacrushpod. That's at cinemacrushpod, all one word. We'll be posting updates there and sharing the things we love. If you have questions or feedback, you can DM us, comment on posts, or respond to stories that we put out. We really appreciate you for listening and giving this podcast a chance. If you have somebody in mind that you think would enjoy it, please share. And I think that's all the announcements that I have for this episode. So let's get you back to the podcast for our review and reflection of Follow That Bird.
And now, on with the show.
Welcome back
Hello.
to Sesame Street.
Whoa.
Whoa. We just watched Follow That Bird.
We sure did follow him.
We sure did. What did you think?
It was a movie.
Yeah.
It happened.
Uh-huh.
I feel like this movie was like the film equivalent of like lo-fi Sesame Street.
That's a really good description. Very good, actually. I was thinking something similar. Not in such eloquent terms, but I feel like this movie feels very similar to like it's a Jim Henson Muppet movie for kids. Like, it's more of a child audience, and it makes me put into perspective the other Muppet films to like realize like, yeah, I mean, Sesame Street is for kids and for parents in the same way that a lot of children's shows have sort of come to pass. But like, Muppet movies are for a older demographic, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like the Muppet Show. Because you're showing, celebrities that more adults would be familiar with. But I really enjoy the Muppet humor that we get in this movie that you don't really get in the Sesame Street TV show. Do you wanna give a little Jacob's quick summary?
Quick summary. There's apparently a council of birds in Indiana or Illinois or somewhere.
Somewhere.
That just decides where birds that don't have parents go.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh shoot, this Big Bird guy, he doesn't have any parents or family. We gotta find him a home.
They're the feathered friends.
And so the feathered friends send Big Bird away to live with a family of dodos who are very strange.
Yeah. They're very like middle class white American, but also very silly and goofy.
Yeah.
I mentioned before that Carol Spinney kind of like originally devised Big Bird as a pretty goofy guy. And I feel like the dodos are kind of the condensed version of like where Big Bird's character might have gone.
Yeah.
They're just very silly and they're very consumer. Like they have the picturesque home in a neighborhood where all the homes are cookie cutter.
I think that was my favorite visual gag of the whole film is there's all these suburban houses, these regular plain neighborhood houses where they all kind of look the same. Yeah. And then there's their home. Their home is also a regular suburban home, but it is just lifted on this huge pole like a birdhouse that just like towers above all the rest of the surroundings.
Which makes absolutely no sense because they're dodos. They are flightless birds.
Yeah.
They don't fly. There's other birds, apparently, that do fly. Because we see Big Bird, like, talking to a little bird Muppet. And there's another little bird Muppet in the Feathered Friends that are small enough that they could fly. But these guys ain't doing that. So, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah. But he stays with them and he's like, I thought this was going to be cooler than it is. So I might just head back to Sesame Street.
See you guys.
See ya. And then he just leaves.
And then he just leaves.
He leaves a note. But yeah, he just leaves. He's like, yeah, I'll just walk back.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
It'll be like 3 hours.
It'll be like 3 hours.
The flight from New York to Illinois took 2 hours. So
it'll be a little longer than that.
It seems reasonable.
I love that because that's very, like, kid logic.
Yeah.
It's like, well, my mom said the flight was 6 hours, so if I walk back, it'll only be like maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's how time works.
That's how time works.
Yeah.
Be a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, then the Sesame Street gang is headed in the opposite direction to try and like intercept them and pick them up.
Right.
So then we get all the shenanigans with them, which I love all the Sesame Street cars that we get to see.
Yes.
Because Oscar has a car.
Yes.
And can drive.
The sloppy jalopy.
The sloppy jalopy.
Mm-hmm. His, as far as I know, his is the only car that actually has a name. But it's a taxi service, basically.
Yep. And then the Count has a car.
Yeah. It has bat wings.
Bat wings and numbers.
The license plate is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Mm-hmm. It's very long.
Gordon and his sister.
And Cookie Monster as well.
And Cookie Monster.
Because Cookie Monster just eats the car throughout the whole film, and it's great.
Yeah. There's a character in this movie that I totally, forgot about. Her name's Linda, and she's deaf. She uses sign language throughout the movie.
Right. I vaguely remember her on Sesame Street growing up.
I remember her because she had a short haircut, and for a while my mom had a short haircut. And so I think I associated the two characters, but I don't think as a kid I really recognized that she was speaking in sign. I think I was just totally didn't realize what was happening.
Well, because everyone else interacts with her normally and speaks with her.
Yeah.
It's you're just like, oh, they're communicating.
Right, exactly.
They're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, so all the characters go after Big Bird to try to meet in the middle. But who else is going after Big Bird?
Meanwhile, two sleazy carnival guys,
Literally the Sleaze Brothers.
Sleaze Brothers,
Yeah.
they're like, hey, a big yellow bird, that's a great attraction.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go get them.
Yeah.
And they're not very smart.
Yeah. And also, Miss Finch is coming after Big Bird.
Yes. Everyone's going after Big Bird.
Yeah. They're following that bird.
They are. And Big Bird kind of just hops from like one little adventure to the next.
Yeah.
Because he meets a singer.
Waylon Jennings.
The turkey farmer.
Yeah.
And then he goes to a farm and he spends the night in a barn and he sings a nice little song.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they meet in Toadstool, Indiana.
Yeah, where there's a mushroom festival happening.
Which I desperately need a mushroom festival in my life.
Yeah. With people in mushroom costumes in a mushroom parade. That happens.
I would absolutely take part in that. And I could see, I bet we could get a big enough group of people interested in doing that here where we live.
Yeah, I could see it.
How many people do you need for a parade?
How big of a parade do you want? How long?
Like, just a little one. Like 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. I can't do the math for what that would require. I've never organized a parade, but...
Well, you work in the city.
The city actually doesn't run any of our parades, though. They're all separate.
Well, you work for the Downtown Coalition.
They don't do that either.
Well, who does? How do I join the parade committee?
The Rotary.
The Rotary?
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'm going to go join the Rotary to get a mushroom festival here in Newburgh.
It's just a bunch of old guys. There's actually like 4 of them in town. There's like 4 Rotary clubs. 4 separate Rotary clubs. And one is the secret one that all the cool people are part of.
Do I have to join all of them?
Probably not. You also do have to pay for membership. So probably just choose one.
I just want a parade.
Probably just go for the one. There's like a noon Rotary.
Do you think the city would be mad if I just did it myself and just put the parade on?
Yes. They would be mad.
Hmm.
Because you have to close streets. And they get mad if you try to do that without permission.
Okay, but if I get my parade in and leave before they come...
Listen, if you want to do a parade in front of the cultural center, you can submit a form through the city to close that street for an allotted amount of time. And at that point, you can pretty much do whatever you want. As long as it doesn't involve nudity or alcohol without a license or violence or defamation of character.
I guess I can get by without those things.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pretty boring mushroom parade, though.
Anyway, mushroom parade happens. Everyone convenes on Toadstool.
And then the circus guys, they get Big Bird.
They get him.
They got him. And they make him blue so that nobody realizes he's Big Bird.
He's literally just like, hey, I need to hide from Miss Finch. And they're like, oh, come hide in this hiding cage. And then they
to which Big Bird is like, yeah, sure.
That seems like a thing. That seems like a real thing.
Very in character for Big Bird.
Yeah,
He's very naive.
Yeah.
Until he realizes it's not okay.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then eventually his friends figure out that he's there and they come and do a rescue mission.
They bust him out.
And the circus guys get arrested and Big Bird goes back to Sesame Street.
And he's like, this is my family.
Yeah.
And then Miss Finch is like, oh, okay.
I'm going to take credit for this.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And then it's the end of the movie.
And that's the Big Bird movie.
That's the Big Bird movie. Yeah.
I had no expectations for this film going into it, but it works.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite Muppet movie.
It's definitely not like the most flashy.
But yeah, the writing is definitely different, like you said, like for the younger audience. And I kind of like that everything is a bit slower paced.
Yeah.
Which I feel like kids' content, it kind of goes the opposite direction now.
Yeah.
Where it's usually faster paced. But it's more repetitive. It's easy to follow, even if you're not really paying attention.
Yeah, right. But there's a lot of like fun little visual gags and jokes and things like that thrown in there that add a little bit of spice.
Yeah.
You know?
It's bigger budget Sesame Street.
Yeah. Right. Like I said, this is their first feature film. And they go on to release a bunch of other, like, smaller films. Eventually they release Elmo and Grouchland, which I'm sure I'll bring to the podcast at some point. A lot of stuff comes from this, but the movie didn't originally do that great in the box office.
Yeah. Did it have a theatrical release?
It did.
Okay.
So, a few facts about this movie. It's hard because there's not really a lot of documentation about the budget. But, like, if you compare it to, like, Muppets Take Manhattan, that had a budget of around $8 million. If you're thinking around there, probably not even that much. This movie made $13.9 million in the box office.
Okay.
So not too bad.
Not terrible.
However, it really underperformed in its opening week. It opened the same day as Fright Night and Weird Science. And then it had heavy competition from Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah. No one's going to see Big Bird if Back to the Future's out.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Oh, yeah, no. Nope.
Warner Brothers' own Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, no wonder.
The Black Cauldron.
Eh.
And Warner Brothers' own National Lampoon's European Vacation. Which, crossover, Chevy Chase appears in both movies.
He does. He's a news anchor.
Yeah.
In this one, which caught me off guard.
Yeah, I know. Well, as a kid, I didn't even realize that. I think I was just like, oh, that's the guy from that Christmas movie. Because I definitely watched that as a kid. I just didn't absorb the adult jokes yet. But in its opening weekend, it only made like $2.5 million. So the gross was almost $14 million, but it didn't do so great that first week.
Yeah, movie theater releases really are tricky.
Yeah.
Because you gotta time it right. Otherwise, it's just gonna end in complete failure. Like, I feel like the reason, there's a couple of, like, phenomenons in film. The most recent one I'd say is, like, Barbenheimer from when we were recording this.
Right.
That worked because they were not in competition with each other. They were just two big movies that released at the same time in complete opposite genres.
Yeah.
And then people made a meme out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what made it work. And then, as a point to a failure, Alvin and the Chipmunks, I think The Road Chip, opened the same day as Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And guess which one did well? And which one did not?
Yeah. I don't think I need to guess on that one. So, Follow That Bird has a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's pretty high.
It really is kind of like a childhood... It's like a kid's cult classic, I feel like. Because, like, I know people that have seen it and really, really love it. And it's a very, like, foundational piece of childhood media. One other thing about this movie, part of the budget that went into it, I'm sure, is that, and I don't know if you caught this, is that the set that they use in this film is not the same one as the Sesame Street TV show set.
No, it's bigger. It's, like, taller, and it feels more 3D.
Yeah. They rebuilt the whole thing. It was built to be more realistic, so they expanded it out. They added new stores, like a music store and a fire station, an auto shop, all kinds of stuff.
Did they keep the set at all for the TV show, or is it just for the movie?
I'm not sure. I feel like if you're gonna build that whole set out,
because, like, that's a huge opportunity for an ongoing TV show if you...
Right.
But then again, depending on what lot you're filming in for that show, you have to build the set to that lot.
Yeah, I feel like Sesame Street as a TV show, there are so many little vignettes that you don't really need the whole big set.
Yeah.
Like, as like a touristy thing, as a thing for filming continuous shots or, like, wide-angle shots like that, it makes sense. But Sesame Street is a lot more, as a TV show, intimate and up close, and, like, the set is more of a background than a place that they're in. And also, like, I think that building a big set like this probably creates limitations for puppeteering that you probably don't have as much if you can customize the set a lot more, like, on the spot for filming the show. So you know, it's a cool thing that they did for this movie. And I think they probably, I would actually be really interested to watch Elmo and Grouchland and see, like, if
Is
they
it the
sort
same?
of replicated and if that set was kept in some way. I don't know where they built it, so I don't know how they would keep it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of film sets kind of just get torn down
Yeah.
and trashed. Like,
Right.
unfortunately, like, you're not gonna keep all of Rivendell
Right.
forever. As much as we
Well-
would love everyone to see that, like,
Yeah.
like when they made The Hobbit, they had to rebuild that whole
Right.
set again.
Well, and that was something we were just watching a video about, was the original Lord of the Rings movies. They built the Shire, and then they tore it all down, and people were like, but we wanted to go and look at it. And then for The Hobbit, they were like, hey, can we build it so that it can actually stay here? Because
Yeah.
people will come see it. They will pay money to come see it. So I think that would be really cool for Sesame Street. But I think part of the thing about Sesame Street for me is that it is just supposed to be like your neighborhood. Obviously, fantastical version. It's for kids, so it's not some violent corner of New York
No.
or something like that. But
No, I was taking notice of some of the stuff in Sesame Street in this movie, because, like, Big Bird, I forget that, like, Big Bird literally lives in an alley
yeah,
between two buildings.
yeah, Big Bird doesn't have like a house that he lives in.
No, he's just, like, he's in a nest.
Yeah, but he's a bird. Like, he doesn't, and the whole point of this movie is, like, Big Bird's a 6-year-old kid, and he doesn't have a bird family. And, like, that's kind of established at the beginning. It's like, he's kind of missing that. But the movie is meant to create that, like, character development of, like, no, the people on the Sesame Street are your chosen family. Like, that's okay. You don't have to feel like you need to fit in with people that look like you. And I think that that's a really powerful message for any kid.
Yeah.
Especially, like, if you're a kid who feels like your family doesn't fit you or your family is not healthy for you. It's a really good message for those kids to be like, you have people in your community around you that really care about you, even if you don't really recognize that, and even if you take it for granted a little bit. It feels weird to say that about a 6-year-old, but, like, that is there. Like, a kid is going to, especially Big Bird, is going to do that thing where he acts based on a whim. He's very much going to be like, oh, yeah, I'll go with you. Like, I trust everybody. Everybody has my best interest in mind, when in reality,
No.
not necessarily the case. Even if they think that they do. Because you know yourself best and you know what you need.
One thing I noticed, too, is the fact that Carol Spinney plays both Oscar and Big Bird.
Yeah.
And seeing both of those characters in this film kind of more in depth.
Yeah.
Oscar, like, kind of low-key looks out for Big Bird.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Because they're neighbors.
Yeah.
Like, literal alley neighbors.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cute.
Yeah. Well, I also, like, I love that Oscar the Grouch bookends the movie. Like, he opens it with the Grouch anthem, and then he ends it just being like, all of this travel was too much for me. I gotta take a walk around my neighborhood. Because Oscar the Grouch loves all of his neighbors.
Well, of course he does, but he's never going to say
But
it.
he's never going to say it.
Because he's a grouch.
Yeah, that's just who he is. And that's okay.
Even grouches can be good people.
Yeah. You asked me a question right before we cut. And I would like you to ask it again.
But yeah, I want to know why this movie is important to you. Why did you bring this to the podcast?
I watched this movie a lot growing up. I feel like this is a movie that when I watch it, I'm like, yeah, I can see why this is, like, very foundational to who I am as a person. First of all, there's birds. Big Bird is the best character in my mind. I I grew up really loving Elmo, but now as an adult, I realize that Big Bird is the top tier Sesame Street character. So that is the main thing, is having like a special focused movie for Big Bird is great. I grew up watching this movie a lot with Ariel, and so I just have a lot of memories of like sitting in my mom's office after we were done with school, because my mom worked at the school that we went to, and so the office she worked in had like a little secret room in the back, and we had a TV where we would put in VHS tapes, and we would watch Strawberry Shortcake, and we would watch Follow That Bird, we would watch Fantasia, a number of things, Bob the Builder, all kinds of stuff, literally just to keep our tiny brains occupied.
All the 90s kids staples.
Yeah, while we were waiting for Mom to get off work, which honestly probably took like 30 to 45 minutes of extra time after the school was over, but for us it felt like forever, and so we needed movies to keep us company. And so this was one of those movies that I grew up watching a lot in that sort of setting. I'm very familiar with it, and I haven't watched it in a long time. And I love the music. All of the Muppet music is so good. It's like not the best music ever in the whole world, but there's just something about it that's like really wholesome and good, and it just makes you happy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just well written, and it's clever, and it's just so good. So those are like, in Muppet movies, when they have music, that's the stuff that I really, really remember from those movies. I'm like, oh, this song is happening, which means that this is going to happen next. Like, that's how my kid brain would keep me interested in the movie. It was like, a song is happening, so now this is going to happen. And they were like stepping stones through the movie.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just a movie I watched a lot as a kid. And I know we both love Muppets. So we gotta consume all the Muppet content at some point.
All of it.
And this movie, like I said, we see Kermit the Frog in this movie, which I totally forgot about. And now I'm like, oh yeah, duh. I totally remember that scene. Kermit the Frog's a reporter who like tells everyone that Big Bird has gone missing.
Well, and it also kind of helps like mirror the Muppet movie, because Big Bird makes a cameo in that one.
Yeah. And
now Kermit makes a cameo in the Sesame Street one.
Well, and Kermit used to be on Sesame Street too.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting. It's always interesting to me to see like the gradation of like the Muppets being sort of connected to Sesame Street, and then after we lose Jim Henson, you start to see them sort of separate from each other and become their own things. And I really miss that era where Jim Henson was holding the reins, because there's a lot of really great golden content in that era.
Mm-hmm.
Because he just knew how to write. And I think just like the more that I watch Jim Henson films, whatever it may be, the more I'm just like, man, I really, really wish that he was still around making stuff.
I know.
Because Frank Oz is still around making stuff. And that's awesome. Like, it's really great to still have him. But it's really unfortunate that we lost Jim at that point. So I feel like this movie is a really great, any of that content, whenever I watch it, I feel a little bit closer to his idea and his view of the world in that way. You know, it feels like watching like a Peter Jackson film where it's like you have a really specific view of fantasy and how a movie should be directed, and Jim Henson is the same way, where it's like that is a Jim Henson production.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like his stuff works because even it doesn't matter whether a character is played by a person or a Muppet, they are all treated the same.
Yes. I also just love the craft of a film like this.
Mm-hmm.
And any Muppet film, I think that's a real strength of Jim Henson's body of work, is that there's a lot of attention to detail, and there's a lot of Easter eggs that you notice, and even things like opening the movie with the Grouch anthem and ending the movie with the counting the credits that are rolling by, which is such a great way to make a kid pay attention to the credits. Also, like, the Muppets did an end credits scene first. You know? They were the OG. Marvel, get out of the way. The Muppets did it first. I just really love this movie. It's been a long time coming to do this review. But it is just such a great film, and I'm going to be listening to the soundtrack for the next couple of days, I think.
Well, thanks for sharing it with me.
Yeah. Do you have any desire to give our listeners a taste of what's to come?
No.
Okay. Keep it secret.
I will surprise you.
Oh, dear.
I will say it's kind of a two-part.
Oh.
Same director, two different films.
Okay, gotcha.
But I'm not gonna throw them both in the same review.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the next two that I host will be related.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Good to know.
Shall we give this a rating?
Yeah. I'll give it 5 bluebirds of happiness out of 5.
Wow.
5.
Well, then I guess I'll have to explain my rating system for
Yes,
those
please do the
tuning
thing.
in for the first time. My rating system, Emily's is whatever she wants it to be.
It's chaotic, and that's okay.
Because you're a chaotic individual.
Yeah.
Mine is on a scale of -10 to 10. -10 being so bad it's good, 0 being terrible, and 10 being fantastic. I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10?
Okay. That's pretty high praise.
It's not my favorite, but
Yeah.
it was cozy.
There are better Muppet movies, but this is a great movie to just put on in the background.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, this is like lo-fi Muppets
Yeah.
for your brain.
Yeah.
If you just want like something in the background while you're doing stuff that's like Muppety related.
Yeah.
Great film.
All right. Well, I think that'll do us for this film review of Follow That Bird. But we will talk to you again soon.
See you then.
Bye.
Thanks again for dropping in, and we hope you've enjoyed the evening as much as we've enjoyed having you here. Till next time, please drive carefully, and good night now.